Welcome back to the Play Space Live. Glad to have you here tonight. I'm Keith Avalone from Play Games. Sam is producing tonight's show and really hosting it as well. I'm just the MC for tonight. I'm going to hand it over to Sam shortly to give you a look at the solo version of a new game from Mike Fitzgerald that we will be publishing soon, Mystery Rummy 6. Now, if you're not familiar with the Mystery Rummy series, they are variants of the traditional Rummy card game. Most people have played Rummy, so it's a riff on the card game Rummy. Each game in the series is themed on a specific mysterious person or event. The first one was released in 1998. It was Mystery Rummy Jack the Ripper, and there have been follow-up Mystery Rummy games based on Jekyll and Hyde, Bonnie and Clyde, Al Capone. There was an Escape from Alcatraz Mystery Rummy, and this latest version of the game continues that mysterious theme with the cast of characters from the Sherlock Holmes mystery series. Now, Mike has been working with Sam on this game primarily to create the card art and develop the rule set. I have helped with playtesting over the last year or so, and provided my own feedback. But really, this is Mike and Sam kind of teaming up, tag teaming on this. We've been working especially on the solo game version of Mystery Rummy 6, which I think is important to our crowd. Play gamers are largely solo gamers, although we have plenty of people who play head-to-head. We have a good contingent of solo gamers, and it's exciting that this game has got a really strong solo variant to it, probably more so than even the other Mystery Rummy games. So that's really a cool thing about it. There's strong interest in our group as well for historically themed stuff. So I think this game's going to be well received. And with that, let me turn it over to Sam for an overview of Mystery Rummy 6, Sherlock Holmes. I'm going to get out of the way. You'll see a blank screen for a few seconds, and then Sam will position himself here. We're going to have to switch to the game cam, or did you already do that? Okay, so Sam's going to... There you go. There are the cards, and Sam is now going to explain them in detail and play a game.
All right. Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. We've got a fun stream ahead of us. So this is Mystery Rummy 6, Mike Fitzgerald's latest game, our upcoming release later this year. And yeah, I'm excited to show you how it works. Sort of the goal for tonight is I will explain the rules of the game, and then we'll play through a solo game of it. Now, this game does also have a multiplayer version. It's a cooperative style multiplayer game. In fact, it started out as a multiplayer first game. But when Mike sort of approached us about publishing the game and putting it on Play Now, we said, yeah, we'd be thrilled to do that. But the solo, it needs to have a strong solo component to it. In order for it to really work for Play Now. So Mike has been hard at work over the past few months, really, tuning this game, fine-tuning it for solo play, and I'm excited with the results. So that being said, this is not the final version of the game. We're pretty close, but there are still some, minor rules up in the air, which I will touch on, I think, as we play through the game. I'll point out some areas that I think, we're still exploring a bit more. But yeah, with that out of the way, why don't we just kind of get into it? And we'll start by kind of talking about what this game is. So it's a deck of cards. There's 72 cards in the deck, and really the game is a puzzle where you, the player, are going to be you shuffle the deck, and then your job is to just rearrange it back in the correct order, just much like you would arrange clues and evidence, or much like Sherlock Holmes would, I suppose, arrange clues and evidence in order to solve a mystery. So there are some starting cards. There's, in fact, quite a few cards that sort of start the game and play. A lot of these are placeholder cards that sort of tell us where we're going to be playing cards to as we collect them in our hand. So yeah, that's mostly what you're seeing right now. The objective of the game is to gather evidence on persons of interest related to the there's two cases. You're actually playing two cases at the same time, which I think is also a first for the Mystery Rummy series. Normally there's one case going on, but in Mystery Rummy 6 Sherlock Holmes, you are solving two Sherlock Holmes cases at the same time. It's the Adventure of the Speckled Band and Scandal in Bohemia. So if you're a Sherlock Holmes fan, then that probably means something to you. It doesn't mean that much to me as somebody who's not too familiar with the franchise, but I will say that without ever having read the stories or watched any of the TV shows or movies associated with them, I feel like I've, through developing this game, sort of come to understand the plot lines of them, which I think is a cool feature. And I imagine that if you're a Sherlock Holmes fan, probably that'll be even cooler for you. So, yes, you're gathering evidence on different persons of interest for these cases. And once you have enough evidence, you'll start to make deductions. And then once you've made enough deductions, then you'll start to crack the case. And again, you need to solve both cases in order to win the game. Now, there's also, of course, it wouldn't be Sherlock Holmes without Moriarty. So over the course of the game, Moriarty will make an appearance and try to sort of foil your plans, and you'll have to work against him. But that, at a very top-down level, is what's about to go on here. So let's talk about what the cards are. These are all just placeholder cards. I guess we'll get to that in just a minute. But first, let's talk about what's in the deck. So this is the deck of cards. We're going to start with some cards in our hand, and then we're going to actually primarily be working out of the discard pile, which we'll set up here shortly. But just to show you sort of what's going on here, there's really two types of cards in this deck. There's these evidence cards. So you can see we have two pieces of evidence for Irene Adler here. And then there are these deduction cards, which have sort of a more colorful background, almost inverted artwork of the evidence cards. They're also, you can distinguish them by the icon on the top corner. So the magnifying glass is evidence, and the pipe cards are deductions. So there are evidence and deductions for each of these different characters shuffled into the deck. Also, here's the Moriarty card, which will come into play later, I'm sure. And so the goal of the game, what you're trying to do, is collect 3 pieces of evidence for each of these characters. So we'll start with Irene Adler. We've got 2 cards for her already. So say we're to collect a third piece of evidence on Irene Adler. You need 3 pieces of evidence, and then you can play this down onto this card right here, and now you've gathered the evidence on Irene. Each time you do that, and this is actually kind of one of the interesting mechanics of the game, every time you gather evidence, Watson will also gather evidence. You're sort of working with Watson as a partner on this. And so this is a Watson's notebook card. And each time you gather evidence, Watson also gathers some, and you put a card from the deck face down. You don't look at it under Watson's notebook. And that sort of represents his deductions that he's made along the way. And you'll be able to get to these cards later on. He kind of keeps them safe for you, and you'll have to consult with him throughout the case to get to those cards. So now we've gathered evidence on Irene, and after this, what we're looking for is the deduction card for Irene Adler. So once we have all 3, now we can play this on top of it. And now we have, made all the deductions we need to make about Irene, and whenever we play one of these cards on top of 3 evidence cards, we get to draw a card from this deck, and we also get to draw an investigation card. Now, investigation cards, this is probably a good time to talk about it. We'll start with one of them in our opening hand, along with 5 other cards. And one of the actions you can take during the game is to play an investigation card to one of these 3 investigators. So we've got Sherlock Holmes himself, and when you play a card to Sherlock Holmes, you just kind of tuck it up underneath here. At least that's what I've been doing. Mike has something else in mind. I should say we haven't played the solo version of it with Mike. He's just sort of sent the rules to me, and I've been doing some editing on them, and been going back and forth with him about it. But there are a few things that I'm not totally clear on, so it's possible that Mike has something else in mind, and we'll, of course, address that before the final game comes out. But for now, I've just been tucking these underneath the investigator cards. And when you do that with Sherlock Holmes, you get to draw 2 cards from the deck. So we would just take these and we put them in our hands. Oh, nice. 2 pieces of evidence for Helen Stoner, where that sort of signifies that we're advancing the case, advancing the evidence that we've gathered on Helen Stoner, and maybe we want to look for more evidence so we can sort of make a deduction on her later on. So that's what happens when you play an investigation to Sherlock. You can also play it to Watson. When you do that, you get to jump into Watson's notebook. So I'm going to move this mic a little bit. I think I'm maybe talking into it in a weird way. Hopefully that's better. Sounds fine? Okay. Great. So when you play a card to Watson's notebook, or to Watson, you get to look at Watson's notebook. So we would start with 5 cards in here, and you'll also put more cards in there, like I explained earlier, each time that you play 3 pieces of evidence down. So maybe these are the cards that are in there. And what Watson lets us do is choose any character and grab all of the cards in the notebook that are related to that character. So here's Helen Stoner. We've got 2 cards for her. Maybe we grab these and let's see. Oh, we actually also get her investigation card. So that would be great for us. We would get to take these, put them into our hand. The rest of them stay in the notebook. And then we could just immediately follow that up by playing these 3 down. Another card goes in here. I'm getting into the gameplay now. I should wait to do that before I explain the rest of the stuff going on. But then we can play this, and I think you're maybe starting to see how it all sort of comes together. I should mention there's no turns in the solo version of this game. It's all action, which I think is very cool, and it definitely works towards the... I think it's what makes it more of a puzzle, really. To me, at least, it feels like a puzzle, where there's not like a turn order that we have to follow. We're just looking at cards, thinking about what each card can let us do, and then, trying to figure out what the best order is to do those things in so that we can solve the case as efficiently as possible before Moriarty can sort of ruin our plan. So that's maybe a good segue into talking about Moriarty. So there is this Moriarty card shuffled into the deck. At some point during the game, he is going to be revealed. And when that happens, he's going to try to help one of the villains of these 2 cases escape. So depending on what the most recent discard is, in this case it would be a pink card, which is the Scandal in Bohemia. No, that's the Adventure of the Speckled Band. Okay, so he would be trying to help Grimsley Roylott escape. So as soon as Moriarty comes out, he steals 2 cards from the deck, and those go under him, similar to Watson's notebook. And in order to get those back, we have to play an investigation card there, and also play 2 additional pieces of evidence for each of the suspects. I use the word suspects. They're not all suspects. Like Helen Stoner, I'm pretty sure is like a protagonist in the Adventure of the Speckled Band. But anyways, we would need 2 pieces of evidence for Grimsley Roylott, Swamp Adder, and Helen Stoner, in addition to our investigation played on to Moriarty. And then we get those cards back, and he's sort of foiled, and we get to keep playing the game as usual. So that's what Moriarty does. There's really only one other card in this deck that I need to explain before we get started here. Actually, I'm sorry, 2 more things to explain, but we're very close to jumping into the gameplay. There are these Arthur Conan Doyle cards mixed in with the rest of the deck. Now, this is a wild card. So instead of, maybe I only have 2 pieces of evidence on Helen Stoner, or Irene Adler, rather. But I have an Arthur Conan Doyle card in my hand as well. I can use him as evidence on Irene Adler in place of her, and then go like this, and then maybe I have the deduction there, and I can play that, and we're making things happen. Now, if later on down the line I happen to draw another Irene Adler card, I can just swap these out, which is very handy. Irene Adler goes back to the pile, Arthur Conan Doyle comes back to my hand, and now I can just play this with another set of 2 cards. So very important card for the game. Really makes a lot of combos possible. One thing, this is one of the areas that I'm a little unclear on that I need to get with Mike about, is I'm not sure if you can play 2 Arthur Conan Doyles. There's only 2 of them in the deck, so it's not too often that you get both of them at the same time. But I'm wondering if you can play 2 Arthur Conan Doyles and only 1 piece of evidence for a suspect in order to make that deduction. So let me know if you think you have a preference one way or another on that. Maybe we'll take some audience suggestions here tonight. So that is Arthur Conan Doyle. The last thing to explain, and then we're going to get into it, is these deduction cards. Now, This is another thing that I think needs just a little bit of work, a little bit of tweaking, is the nomenclature here, because it is a little confusing that we're calling these deductions, these bright colored cards that you play on top of 3 pieces of evidence, and these are also called deductions. They work in a similar way, but they're a little bit different. Instead of needing 3 pieces of evidence, you need to have made 2 other deductions on this case in order to play this. So, for instance, this deduction for the Scandal in Bohemia, we need to have the deductions made for Irene Adler and Godfrey Norton in order to be able to play this here. And this sort of represents tying the evidence that we've collected together to finally crack the case. And it usually doesn't happen until later on in the game. So that is the game. We need to get all 5 of these, or all 10 of these deductions made, and we need to get rid of Moriarty. And if we can do that before we run out of cards in the deck, we win the game. And that is really all there is to it. Like I said, there's no turns. We just get to keep doing actions until we either run out of cards in the deck or win. So I think I've explained most of the actions, except for actually the most basic one, which is that at any time you can discard the top card of the deck, and you can also take the top card of the discard pile into your hand if you can play it. So why don't I just start playing, and I think this will all start to make sense here very soon. Do we have any questions in the chat yet about specific?
Magic Drop says this looks awesome.
Okay, well, thank you, Magic Drops. I'm glad that you're liking it so far. Just wait till you see it in action. I think you'll be even more impressed. Oh, shoot, I forgot to shuffle Moriarty. Oh, you know what? This is actually one more sort of question. I'm unclear on whether Moriarty... So if we just shuffle him to the deck, as we're about to do, there's a chance that he starts the game either in Watson's notebook or in your hand, in your starting hand. So I'm wondering if maybe we need to take him out of the deck before we shuffle, deal those 2 piles out, and then shuffle him back in. The way Mike has it explained in the rules is that as soon as you see Moriarty, he comes into play. So I take that to mean that if he starts in the notebook or in your hand, you just start with 1 fewer card. And just as soon as you look at that card, as soon as it's visible to you, that's when you put Moriarty into play. So we're going to play it that way, but I could see a case being made for doing it the other way. So we got this all shuffled up. We will start by dealing ourselves 5 cards. And then we also get 1 investigation card. I'll go ahead and put that back out there. And then we will put 5 cards into Watson's notebook. And let's see if I can crack this case. Okay. Here we, oh, shoot. All right, well, I'll just have to shuffle that back in. Is there anything else on the table that I forgot to shuffle? I don't think so. 1 more. Okay, great. So hopefully this is all visible on camera. I like to just sort of play open-handed, keep my hand down here. You guys might not be able to quite see it, but you should be able to see the tops of the cards. I'm looking over on the screen, and it looks like we're good. All right, so this is the opening hand. And let's just sort of look at what I've got here. So we got 2 pieces of evidence on Helen Stoner. And then I've got both an evidence and a deduction to make on Irene Adler. So this is good. We like to see cards of the same character all start in our opening hand. So this is looking like a good start to me. The first thing that I want to do here is just discard the top card of the deck, just to see what we've got. Okay, King of Bohemia. Not anything for us to really do with that right now. I think let's go for another. Now, the risk here is that cards can get stuck in the discard pile. And we have ways to address that, like Inspector Lestrade. I think I actually forgot to mention this when I was going over the investigation cards. But we can play an investigation card to Inspector Lestrade to essentially do the same thing as Watson's notebook, but with the discard pile instead. So we'll get to look at the discard pile. In fact, we always can look at the discard pile. We keep it sort of splayed out. It's going to extend in a line here. And we can take any card, choose any character basically, and take all of their cards related to them from the discard pile, both their evidence cards and deduction cards. Outside of that, the only way we can get cards from this discard pile is by taking the top card. And when you do that, you do get the rest of the cards that have the exact same name. But you don't get, so if we had the Irene Adler deduction in the discard pile, but we're taking an Irene Adler evidence card, we wouldn't get the deduction. So it makes the deductions a little bit difficult to get to if they end up stuck in the pile. We kind of have to use Inspector Lestrade. But let's keep going here. We'll let's discard another. Oh, we have Helen Stoner. And I should mention again, just to be totally clear, you can only take this card if you can play it immediately. Now, I can play it immediately because I've got 2 other pieces of evidence for Helen Stoner in my hand here. So I will go ahead and do that. And I'll put them on her placeholder card here. And while we make that deduction, I guess it's not really deduction, we've gathered evidence on Helen Stoner. Watson also gathered some evidence, and a card goes into his notebook. And now let's just keep going. Let's discard another card. My sense is that the trick to this game is managing the discard pile well. You don't want to have a big, fat discard pile, so I think we can maybe discard a couple more, but our sort of silver bullet out of having a huge discard pile is that we can use this investigation card either onto Sherlock Holmes or onto Watson to get some cards from other places that will maybe help us get cards out of the discard pile. So let's discard one more here. Okay, King of Bohemia. Now we have 2 copies of King of Bohemia right here. So what I think I'm going to do is play an investigation card onto Watson, just like this, to look at this notebook now. And I'm hoping that there's one more piece of evidence on the King of Bohemia in there. Otherwise, we might be in some trouble. So let's see what we've got. We've got Grimsby Roylott, Swamp Adder, Helen Stoner, Irene Adler, and another Helen Stoner, and then a deduction card. That's not exactly what I needed. We can still work with it because we've got Irene Adler, and that is a card that we already have one more copy of in our hand. So I think I'll take that. But it does feel a little bit bad to only get one card out of Watson's notebook. So if I had wanted Helen Stoner, I don't want Helen Stoner because we've already gathered all the evidence we need for her. But if I were to take Helen Stoner, I would get to take both cards, remember, because it's all cards. And in fact, if she had had a deduction in here too, then I would have been able to take that as well. But Irene Adler is the one that we want, so we'll take that. And from there, really our only option is to continue discarding cards. So let's hope that our luck sort of turns around for us. Godfrey Norton. Man, okay, so there's 2 of him in there now. But we can't take it because we don't have another one to play with. So let's keep going. Oh, there we go. That's very nice. All right. So we'll take all 3 Godfrey Norton cards. And we can take it because we can play it. So we'll not only take the top one, but also all other copies of the exact same card. Again, could not take an deduction in this way if there happened to be a Godfrey Norton deduction in there. But still, we've got the discard pile back down to just 2 cards, which is a good spot. We also have to put another card into the notebook, which is making me sort of want to check that again sometime soon. See what Watson's been up to. We'll flip this. Ooh, Swamp Adder deduction. That is sort of a bad thing to see. As I mentioned earlier, it's difficult to get the deductions out of there outside of using an investigation card. But and then we get Moriarty as well. Okay, well, let's set this up. So he will be on the speckled band case this time, since the top card of the discard pile is pink. It's a speckled band case card. He will steal from us the top 2 cards of the deck. That goes underneath his card. And we've got a ways to go before we can get those back from him.
It's funny on the screen. It looks like Moriarty is peeking over your shoulder.
Oh, yeah? Keith says it looks like he's peeking over my shoulder on the screen, which is creating a funny illusion there. All right. Can
you see it?
Yeah, I can see it. Yeah, it does look pretty funny.
He's staring at you.
Oh, Godfrey. Oh, we can take this. We'll take this card immediately off of the discard pile and play it because we've got our evidence gathered. So that is very nice. And when we do that, we get both the top card of the deck straight into our hand and also an investigation card. Now, it's important to note the difference between having a card in the discard pile and having a card in your hand. Cards in your hand are very safe. You can play them at any time. They're at your disposal at any time. And they sort of inform the decisions that you're making about, when you want to play the investigations and what you can do with the discard pile. So just thought that was important to point out there. The bigger your hand is, the better position you're in, is sort of the way that I see it. We also have this investigation that we could play, but I think it's probably going to be worth holding off on that for a little while and seeing what else we can get going here. Let's flip over another card. Okay, there's the Swamp Adder. We do have one of those in our hand, and I'm trying to think if we saw one in the notebook. I don't think that we did, so I'm going to just go ahead and discard one more card here. Okay, we can take that. We can take that, and we can actually do two things with that. Not only can we gather 3 pieces of evidence on Irene Adler, and then put a card into Watson's notebook, but we can also go ahead and just make the deduction, which is very nice. That will get us another card in our hand, and also another investigation card. So things are sort of turning around for us. I'm thinking we might want to go ahead and check out the notebook again. There's a chance that we've got a Swamp Adder card in there, which would be great because we could take that and then we'd open up this card to be grabbable from the discard pile, and then we could play that immediately. So let's try to chain that all together. Let's put another investigation under Watson and go take a look at the notebook once again. So Grimsley Roylott, yeah. Oh, yes! Perfect. Exactly what we needed. Now, again, it does feel a little bit bad to only take one card from this, but in this case, it's exactly the card we needed, so I'm not too upset about it. Go ahead and take that, and I will also take a moment to sort of review Watson's other notes. Helen Stoner, we've already done that. Grimsley Roylott, we're very close to Watson being able to just make gather all the necessary evidence for Grimsley Roylott. So if we find one more card of him, it might be worth taking another trip to the notebook. But for now, we'll put that back down. And then I will take the top card of the discard pile because I can play it. And then we'll put all of these right here on the evidence card. And then we put another card in the notebook. And then we can also, because we played it so well, take this, the deduction that we need, put that right there, get ourselves another card and another investigation. And now we are really getting... Oh, look at this. Wow. When you win, you win. All 3 King of Bohemia cards right there. And another card into the notebook.
We got Moriarty.
Yeah. Keith's pointing out that at this point, Moriarty is sort of the main threat here. So we might start looking for ways to deal with that. We have nothing in the discard pile, though. So my first point of action, I think, is going to be to go ahead and discard that. And I think I can discard again because I don't need to get to that card ever. We've already deduced all that we need to deduce there. And sort of the same way with Godfrey Norton. Let's give that another discard. Okay, there's Grimsley Roylott. So we know there's at least two Grimsley Roylotts in the notebook. We've put 2 more cards in there since the last time we checked, so it's possible that Watson has just solved that for us. And so I'm a little bit tempted to just go ahead and check that. I think instead I'm going to play this to Sherlock Holmes, which is going to let me draw 2 cards from my hand. The main reason that I'm doing that is not so much to draw the cards, but because we are going to need to play at least one investigation to Sherlock at some point during the game in order to make these 2 deductions. So we'll go ahead and do that and draw 2 cards. Now we are getting dangerously low in this deck. I'm not sure if you're allowed to count the cards, but just for the sake of drama, I'll count them out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 cards left. So, yeah, and we've still got quite a bit of work to do here. I was telling Keith before the stream that I was afraid this might be a little too easy. I didn't want to make it seem too easy since I've been playing this game so much, but we're in for a little bit of a challenge here, I'm afraid. Or maybe not afraid. Maybe that's a good thing. But let's go ahead and do... Okay, so here is actually one of those deduction cards I was talking about. So I will play that here. And I can play that here because I've got both... I've got an investigation played to both Sherlock Holmes and Watson. So that one works a little bit differently than these other investigations. It's just sort of something to keep in mind there. And that's going to let me take another investigation card. And now, I should point out, I think I have not pointed this out yet, but when you complete a deduction like that, you always take an investigation card, but the drawing a card from the deck is optional. And with only 7 cards left, I'm trying to think if there's a reason not to take the card. I think probably I should take it still. If there's only 1 card left in the deck, obviously you don't want to take it because I think you just lose as soon as you are out of cards in the deck. You either lose immediately or you lose the next time that you have to draw a card. So that's King of Bohemia. We don't really need that. And that is a bit of a bummer. So I think what I'm going to do is play another investigation. I could discard more cards, but it's risky because I need to get to this Grimsley Roylott before it's too deep in the pile. Otherwise, I'm going to have to ask Lestrade to go investigate that for me, which I always feel like is not an optimal use of resources. So I think let's get back into the notebook, give Watson another investigation card, and see what he's been up to. At the very least, we can grab the 2 Grimsley Roylott cards that are in here. Oh, and it looks like... No, we're not in luck. He does still only have the 2. Okay, well, I'm tempted, though. I could take the King of Bohemia instead. Or I could take Helen Stoner. Both of those are going to be things we're going to need at some point. In fact, I can sort of just chain this all together, because completing these deductions does score me another investigation card. So I think I might just do that first. So I'll show you what I mean. I'll take King of Bohemia, and then I also actually get this card too. Although I don't think it's going to do much for me, since we've already solved that case. But now I can play this here, and I can draw another card. I think I'll go ahead and do it. It's better to draw the card than discard it. And we do need to kind of see what the rest of the cards in this deck are. Oh, Arthur Conan Doyle. That's very good, actually. That's going to be really nice for us. So we've got 2 investigation cards still. We've got Arthur Conan Doyle. He is actually going to let us make the Grimsley Roylott deduction that we need. So let's do that next. Let's get back into the notebook. Watson does usually end up with most of these investigation cards, I'm noticing, and for better or worse. So let's grab the 2 Grimsley Roylott cards now. He's just made several deductions. So I have a feeling we're going to be spending a lot of time in Watson's notebook this game. So now we can play these 2 with Arthur Conan Doyle, and I like to keep him on top just so that it's easy to remember that you can grab that. Put that there. Now we can take the top card of the discard because we can play it. So let's put that there. And now let's take 1 more of each of these. So we've got yet another deduction to make. And we've already gathered all the evidence we need for that. 3 cards left. Let's go ahead and take these.
We got Moriarty, though.
Yes, we do still have Moriarty. That is true. Yeah. And I will probably need to resolve that soon. What do you think? Another trip to the notebook? That's kind of what I'm feeling. Although we could do this as well. Yeah, let's do this. Let's just take the investigation this time. We got plenty of investigations. So I guess let's just kind of start using them to get the stuff we need out of the notebook. Go back in here. Let's grab... I mean, we're going to need both of these eventually, so let's... Yeah, we could also take the 2. Well, let's take all 3 Helen Stoner cards. Now, this is actually one more thing that I'm in the air about. So this card has Helen Stoner on it. I wonder if that means you should also be able to take that from the notebook, because I'm grabbing all of the Helen Stoner cards. Unsure on that, but I'll leave it in there for now. That's not how we've been playing it, but just sort of something that's crossed my mind. Now we can actually do 2 things with these. We can play both Helen Stoner cards over here to Moriarty. And then we can make a deduction as well. It's going to get us investigation card. Why don't we just go ahead and put that on Moriarty 2. And we are starting to get close. But we are not there yet. So what do we need? We need one more deduction that I think is either going to be one of these 2 or one of these 2. I hope it's not one of these 2, because that would almost certainly lose us the game. The game is sort of about, once Moriarty comes out, figuring out what he's got and whether you need it or not. So with that in mind, why don't we've got one more investigation to grab out of the notebook. Let's do that first. I should be probably playing these to Watson, but honestly, after the first one, it doesn't really matter. You just need to keep track of whether you've played at least one investigation card to these different investigators or not. So we'll take this, and we'll go ahead and play it, and we'll get this back, and we will also draw a card. There's 3 left. Now there's 2. Swamp Adder, that's very good. We can put this over here. Now, what we need is one more Grimsley Roylott card so that we can defeat Moriarty and win the game. That's the last thing that we need. So, honestly, let's just discard here. Let's go like this. Oh, Arthur Conan Doyle. That'll work. That will work. We can play that with Grimsley Roylott over here to Moriarty. And now we have all the evidence that we need to solve these cases. We can see all the deductions have been made. Moriarty has been defeated. And we have successfully completed our first case of with 1 card left in the deck. Yes, it does. Seems like it always comes down to the last card. What was it? Godfrey Norton. Okay. So there you go.
Mike says he's done it with like 7 cards left.
Mike says he's done it with 7 cards left. Wow. Okay. Well, there you go, Mike. That's I guess that's the designer's experience for you. So very cool. Was I playing it right? I didn't realize Mike was watching. No, did he make any comments about?
I remember him telling me that. I don't think he's watching.
Oh. Okay. Got it. Got it. So Keith has said that Mike Fitzgerald, who designed the game, obviously has completed it with like 7 cards left on the deck, and I think that is actually something we're looking at ways to implement, is like how to sort of score your game. So look forward to that in the full release, but we haven't really come up with a system for that yet, because it probably should be more than just how many cards are left in the deck. There should be some other features, probably cards in the discard pile, cards in the notebook. But anyways, that's for another stream. And yeah, that is what we've got for Mystery Rummy 6 so far. Again, it's very close, very fun. I enjoyed playing that game, and hopefully you enjoyed watching as well. So that will be coming out later this year to play now. So thank you guys so much for letting me play this game with you tonight, and I'm going to hand it back over to Keith, who will close us out. See you later.
It was a fun game to watch, and Sam did a great job, I thought. Appreciate you watching tonight. Glad you're here. In case you missed it, I posted this month's Play Connect earlier today, mostly a recap of last week's news show, although there are a couple of new things in there, and, of course, some awesome freebies. So if you get a chance, check it out. Play.com, click the blog link at the top or bottom of the homepage. Also, if you've signed up for Play.con, you should have gotten an email update yesterday with some information that we wanted to provide you and some information we need to get from you. So if you did not get it, please check your spam folder first. Sometimes it winds up there. Otherwise, reach out to us and we'll resend it to you. Just 2 months until Play.con 2025. Getting pretty exciting. Hope you have a great weekend. Let me know if I can help out with anything. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you next week right here in the Play Space Live.